Okay, it's time for starting the Disney Storybook Library Advent Calendar Countdown to Christmas with 24 exciting books. Heathcliff is so excited over there. Okay, now we got to find the number 1. There it is. Okay, now these are different from last year. If y'all tuned in from my Five Below last year, we did Disney storybooks. I was so excited that they have got different advent calendars at Five Below, and I will say this again. If you get a chance, go to Five Below. I don't know if they have any left in Champaign-Urbana, but let me tell you, I enjoy doing this, and I hope that when I finish reading all of these little stories, I'll probably give it to the Candy Kitchen, even if it's after Christmas. And I hope that it finds a good home. But anyway, let's do this Disney Alice in Wonderland, A Present for the Queen. And there's nothing on the back. And as you can clearly see, it says 2023 Autumn Publishing, sold as part of a set, not for resale. So let's open it up. And again, it's telling us Alice in Wonderland, A Present for the Queen, the Autumn Publishing. It looks like Christmas, Alice said, gazing out of her parlor window one cold December afternoon. Snow sparkled in the fields and on the branches of the pine trees. Outside, children were building a snowman. Alice thought about joining them, but the parlor was so warm and cozy. Alice yawned. Perhaps it would be best to stay inside, after all. Suddenly, something hopped across the snow in front of Alice's house. It was a rabbit with white fur, wearing a red coat. Startled, Alice sat up, peered out the window. "Why, it's the White Rabbit from Wonderland," she cried. "It's lost, it's lost," the White Rabbit wailed as he hurried past the house. Alice quickly put on her coat. She ran outside and after the rabbit. She caught up to him just as she was about to dive into the hole under a tree. "Oh, you must let me through," the White Rabbit cried. "I've lost the Queen of Hearts' Christmas present. If I can't find it, she'll have my head." "Oh, dear, that would be awful indeed," Alice said. "Please let me help you find it." But the White Rabbit simply dove down the hole without another word. Alice followed the White Rabbit, leaving her house far behind. As Alice fell, she passed all sorts of Christmas decorations. There were stockings, wreaths, garland, and even a beautifully dressed tree. Down and down she fell until she landed with a thump. Alice saw the rabbit's furry tail disappear through a door. She hurried after him and found herself on a snowy path lined with evergreen trees. The White Rabbit was gone, but Alice could see his footprints in the snow. Alice made her way down the path, admiring the lights on the trees. "Why, they're fireflies!" she exclaimed. All at once the footprints stopped. "I've lost him again," Alice said with a sigh. "Lost who?" someone asked. A toothy smile appeared in one of the snowy trees, and followed by quickly a purple striped cat around the smile. "Cheshire Cat," Alice cried happily. "Maybe you can help me. The White Rabbit has lost the Queen's present, but that's a loss." "What?" the cat interrupted, grinning down at Alice. "I thought you said you lost a who?" Alice frowned. Usually she quite enjoyed the riddles, but she had such trouble explaining herself to the Cheshire Cat. "I didn't lose a what?" she said to the smiling cat. "The White Rabbit did, and now I've lost him." Suddenly the Cheshire Cat disappeared, leaving the tree branch empty once again. "I can't help you with who you're lost, who," he called out, "but I can help you with your lost what. Try the Mad Hatter." Alice looked around and she knew the Mad Hatter wasn't on the path behind her. So she continued soon and she heard music. Deck the halls with bowls of jello, foo-loo-loo-loo-loo-loo-loo. Alice emerged in the clearing. The Mad Hatter and the March Hare stood with their arms around each other singing. They stopped when they saw Alice. "Join us," the Mad Hatter cried. "We're singing Christmas carols." "Christmas carols?" Alice asked, confused. "Don't you mean Christmas carols? What does carol have to do with it?" The March Hare asked. "Everyone knows who Harold wrote all the best Christmas songs," added the Mad Hatter. And with that, the March Hare and the Mad Hatter began to sing again. "Oh, Christmas tea, with milk and cream we drink thee." "But that's not how that song goes at all," Alice said, shaking her head. "And anyway, I don't have time to sing. The White Rabbit had lost the Queen's present and—" Suddenly the Mad Hatter jumped in front of Alice, holding a teapot and a teacup. "Cold cocoa?" he offered, handing Alice the teacup. "Don't you mean hot cocoa?" Alice replied. "This reminds me of a riddle," the Mad Hatter said. "What keeps your head cool in the summer and warm in the winter?" "A hat, of course," Alice said, with a twinkle in her eye. The Mad Hatter took off his hat. Sitting atop his head was a large Christmas present, and lying on top of that was a present with a tiny, sleepy dormouse. "And there you are," the Mad Hatter said, grabbing the dormouse. "And here you are," the March Hare said, handing Alice the present. "Oh, thank you," Alice cried. "Now, if you would be so kind—" But the Mad Hatter and the March Hare weren't listening, and they burst into song again. Alice realized that she would have to keep looking for that White Rabbit on her own. Shaking her head, Alice left the clearing. As she made her way through the trees, she saw that the White Rabbit's footprints had reappeared. She carefully followed them all the way to the Queen's castle. As she approached the gates, the Queen guards grabbed her. "The Queen's got a reward out for your head," one of the guards said. The guards took Alice to the throne room where the White Rabbit was busy apologizing to the Queen. I'm sorry, Your Majesty," he said, stammering. "I had your present and I lost it." The Queen had heard enough. She stood and pointed down at White Rabbit. "Off with his head," she shouted. I can't talk tonight. "No," Alice cried, breaking away from the guards. "The present isn't lost. I found it." The Queen glared at Alice. "Off with her head," she yelled. The King coughed quietly and placed his hand on the Queen's arm. "Perhaps you should open the present first, dear," he suggested meekly. The Queen eyed the present. "I suppose I could," she said, tearing off the box's wrapping. Her eyes lit up as she pulled out a small Christmas tree. As the Queen of Hearts admired the next gift, a large grin appeared in the air next to Alice. "Now might not be the worst time to slip away," it said. Alice nodded and quietly snuck out of the room. As she safely was out of sight, she began to run, but she slipped on a patch of ice and hit her head. Everything went black. When Alice opened her eyes, she found herself back in her parlor. She yawned sleepily. "What a strange dream I just had," she said. Stretching, Alice looked out the window. Her eyes stopped on the finished snowman. It was wearing a familiar hat and holding a teacup. Alice frowned. Perhaps it hadn't been a dream after all. Oh, goodness, how many of us over the years have had those dreams that seem so real, but yet they weren't? Or were they? Just something to ponder. Okay, we're going to move on to story number 2 because my personal goal is to get these read as quick as possible so we can get them on their way to the candy kitchen.